I tried to change for love, but I lost who I was, until I found myself again. I never imagined the day would come when I felt like I wasn't enough. 7 years with someone I thought loved me, and suddenly, one day, I found myself staring into what felt like an abyss in my life. Joshua, who had always been my partner, started looking at me differently, not in the way I expected. His doubts about our future grew, and I didn't know how to deal with it. It was as if everything we'd built was about to crumble, and the worst part was knowing it wasn't coming from him, but from his family. They didn't accept me. They thought I wasn't the right woman to marry their son, just because I was independent, ambitious, and had dreams that differed from the values they believed were right. At first, I tried to understand. I swear I did. I wanted to believe that love would overcome this, that Joshua would see who I truly was. But he was trapped in the pressure from his mother, his father, his brothers. They had their own idea of what a wife should be, and I didn't fit in. They told me I needed to be more submissive, less focused on my career, more dedicated to taking care of the house, to molding myself to please them. And I thought I could change for him, for us. But the change didn't come from within. It just felt like a mask I put on to try to save a love that was sinking. There was a day when I woke up and looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I wasn't the Maria I knew. I was losing myself amid this desire to please, to be accepted. And I felt an enormous emptiness, a sadness that slowly consumed me. I felt betrayed by the love I thought I had, because in reality, I was loved only in the version they wanted, and that hurt so much. I thought that, with effort, it would work out, but the truth is, I was erasing myself to try to fit into a space that was never meant for me. One day I finally exploded. It wasn't with shouting, it wasn't with pretty words, it was with a mixture of exhaustion, frustration, and fear. I stopped pretending everything was okay. I asked him to really listen to me. I told him I couldn't stand trying to be who he and his family wanted me to be anymore, that I needed to be loved for who I really am, not for what they want me to be. And in that conversation, which was more of a vent than a dialogue, I understood that Joshua had never defended me when my family spoke ill of me, that he never saw me as a partner, but as a project to be molded. From that moment on, everything changed. I decided that if love was meant to be like this for him and his family, I no longer wanted to be a part of it. We ended up separating. It was painful, obviously, but it was the most honest thing I've ever done in my life. I needed to lose a relationship that seemed perfect on the surface to finally find myself, rediscover myself, love myself just the way I am, without masks, without external pressures, without trying to be someone I'd never been. That was the beginning of a transformation I didn't even know I needed. After the separation, I went through difficult times. The feeling of failure and loneliness hit hard. I had lost not only a partner, but also a vision of the future that I had considered secure. His family completely distanced themselves, and I felt alone in a bubble that seemed to be closing in on me. But at the same time, I began to find myself again. Little by little, I refocused on my career, my dreams, and most importantly, on myself. Each small achievement was a step out of the darkness I had experienced. Time has taught me that it's not worth changing for someone who doesn't accept you just the way you are. That love isn't about trying to fit someone into patterns that don't make sense to them. I healed myself with a lot of effort, a lot of pain, and a lot of courage to start over. And it wasn't easy, because when we love someone, we want to give ourselves. But there comes a time when we need to look within and decide, am I giving myself to myself, or am I losing myself in the other person? 5 years have passed since that breakup that felt like the end of the world. I grew up, matured, and found a different kind of love. Paulo didn't ask me to change who I am. He loved me completely, with my ambitions, my independence, and even my fears. And that's when I understood the true meaning of being in a relationship. Being with someone who sees you and values you without trying to fit you into a mold. With him, I built a life I never thought possible after everything I'd been through. Then, out of nowhere, came the news that shook me again. Joshua tried to get back together. He admitted that his marriage to that ideal woman he chose to please his family had failed. I thought I would feel anger or sadness, but instead I felt a strange mix of relief and peace. Relief because he finally realized that true love can't be molded or controlled, and peace because I had followed my path. I no longer needed his or his family's approval. I was now in a place where I was valued for who I truly am. When I realized all this, a tremendous clarity washed over me. I saw that for years, I'd tried to fit my life into other people's expectations, and that this had hurt me greatly. Losing this relationship was the greatest pain I've ever felt, but it was also the greatest gift life has given me. The chance to rewrite my story my way, with my choices, my mistakes, my successes, without having to be someone else. I want whoever reads this to know that, as impossible as it may seem, it is possible to find yourself after a great loss. I still carry scars from that period, of course. Sometimes doubt returns. The fear of not being enough knocks on the door. But today I can recognize these feelings and don't let myself drown in them. I learned to listen to myself, to value my voice, to set boundaries. I learned that it's not weakness to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you. That love shouldn't hurt or make you doubt yourself. And that, above all, the most important person in your life needs to be you. Deep down, I wish Joshua had seen all this sooner, that he had had the courage to defend his love for me against any pressure. But I also understood that this isn't my responsibility. Everyone has their own time, and what matters is that I survived and that today I'm whole, even with scars. I became stronger because I refused to give up who I am, for fear of losing someone who wasn't willing to truly accept me. One of the hardest moments for me was looking back and realizing I had believed in a false version of what love should be. I thought I needed to change to be loved, and it consumed me. But today, I see that love doesn't require sacrifices that destroy you. Love is freedom. It's partnership. It's respecting each other's essence. That day I decided to stop being silent was the turning point. It was the day I chose myself, and that changed everything. I know many people go through this and feel alone, thinking the problem lies within them. I want you to know it doesn't. The problem lies when others can't love you for who you are, when love becomes a prison. Don't accept being told you need to be less, that you have to conform to standards that aren't yours. You are enough just the way you are. The battle is internal, but the victory is beautiful and liberating. Over the years, I've learned that family can have a lot of influence, but the final decision is ours. Their approval should never have been more important than my well-being. And even though we want so much to please, we can't build a healthy relationship if the foundations aren't solid. It's painful to accept this, I know, but it's necessary. If you're going through something similar, know that it's possible to get through this, even if it feels like everything is falling apart. Today, when I look back, I no longer feel ashamed of what I experienced. I feel proud of my strength. I know it's not always easy, that the journey is long and full of ups and downs, but every step is worth it. I found my voice, my autonomy, and that's priceless. The love I have today is the result of this struggle, this search for myself. I don't regret anything. I'm just grateful for having the courage to start over. I know my story isn't unique, that many women face the same dilemma. And perhaps what I can leave here is the certainty that we don't have to give up. Our identity, to be loved. True love doesn't try to change you, it embraces you completely. And when we learn this, the world changes. We change. And that's how we heal and move forward. The truth is that the breakup was the most painful moment of my life, but also the most liberating. I left that relationship heartbroken, but with a clarity I'd never had before. I knew I deserved more than a half-hearted love, a love that made me doubt my worth. I deserved someone who looked at me with pride, not distrust. I deserved a love that felt like a home, not a prison. I still remember the days when I cried alone, wondering where I went wrong. I thought that maybe if I were more patient, sweeter, less ambitious, things would have worked out. But the truth is, the mistake was never mine. The mistake was trying to be someone I wasn't, for fear of losing the one I loved. Today, I allow myself to be imperfect, to be myself, and that's what makes me happy. Meeting Paolo changed everything. He showed me that there's someone who can love you for who you truly are, without trying to change you. With him, I started believing in love again, the kind of love that doesn't suffocate you, that pushes you forward. We build together, respecting each other's dreams, and that's something I never imagined I'd experience after all that. I know not everyone will understand this choice to separate, to not accept external impositions, but I've learned to listen to myself before any advice or opinion. I've learned to trust my instincts and value my happiness above all else. And that's not selfishness, it's self-care. Because if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will do it right for you. When Joshua tried to return, I confess I felt a pang in my heart, but it was different from the feeling before. It was a mixture of understanding and firmness. I had already moved on. I had already found the peace he hadn't given me, and understanding this was liberating. I no longer needed anyone to validate who I was. I already validated myself. His family? Well, I lost touch with them. I learned that you can't force acceptance where there's no respect. Their love was never for me. It was an idea of what I should be, and that's very different. I didn't have to prove anything to them, only to myself, and I did. I proved that being true to yourself is the greatest act of courage anyone can perform. Sometimes that little voice inside me still tells me it could have been different, that it could have worked out. But then I remember how much I suffered trying to be someone else, and how much my life improved when I decided to be me. This gives me the strength to move forward, to continue growing and loving in my own way. I want anyone reading this to know they're not alone, that even in pain, confusion, and fear, there's a path back to yourself, that it's possible to rebuild self-esteem, confidence, and hope, that it doesn't have to be perfect, that it doesn't have to be quick. The important thing is not to give up on yourself. From that day on, I decided to stop being silent. My life changed. I started to value myself more, to take care of my mental health, to invest in my career without fear of being judged. I started surrounding myself with people who truly accepted me and saying no to those who didn't respect me. It was a slow but steady process. The hardest part was dealing with the guilt I felt for failing in the relationship. But today I understand that it wasn't my fault. It was the fault of a system that tries to fit women into outdated standards and a man who didn't have the courage to fight for what he felt. I'm not responsible for that, and that's liberating. When I look back, I see that all that pain made me stronger. It taught me that self-love isn't selfish, that I can and should set my own limits, that I deserve respect and happiness, that the love that's worth it is the one that completes you, not erases you. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I won't lie, I still have difficult days. Days when insecurity hits, when doubts return. But now I know that these days will pass, that I have tools to deal with them, that I'm no longer alone. I've learned to forgive myself, to accept my mistakes, and to celebrate my victories no matter how small. The love I have today isn't perfect, but it's true. It's not a love based on approval or change, but on acceptance and partnership. It's a love that gives me strength, that inspires me to be better, but never to be someone else. And it makes me feel complete, even with all the imperfections I carry. I think the biggest lesson from all this is that we need to be true to ourselves above all else, because life is too short to be lived trying to please others. We have to love ourselves first, respect ourselves, value ourselves. Only then will we find someone who does this with us, not against us. I understood that love isn't about sacrificing yourself, giving up your dreams or your identity. Love is about growing together, being a companion, supporting each other through differences, and strengthening each other through similarities. I finally experienced this, and I don't want anything different. My story didn't end with that painful ending. It continued with much struggle, discovery, and above all, self-love. And that's what I want to share here. The hope that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to find yourself after pain, and that happiness doesn't depend on anyone but yourself. If I could talk to the Maria of old, I would tell her not to give up, to be patient with herself, to not be afraid to be who she is, to understand that the love that's worth it is the one that accepts you, not the one that transforms you into someone else, and that she's strong enough to keep going, even when everything seems to be falling apart. Today I see that what seemed like an end was actually a new beginning, an invitation to rediscover myself, love myself more, and build a life that was truly mine. And that's the greatest victory I've achieved so far, the right to be myself, my way, with all my imperfections and qualities. I want to thank everyone who reads this, because sharing this part of my life isn't easy. But if I can inspire someone, if I can help someone realize they're not alone, that there's a way out, it's all worth it. We don't have to settle for less than we deserve, and we deserve true love, a love that builds, not destroys. I still carry the scars, but they don't define me. They only show that I fought, that I resisted, and that I won. With each passing day, I feel more whole, happier, freer. And that's a gift I give myself every day. I learned that being strong isn't about not feeling pain, but about feeling it and moving on anyway. It's about accepting that we have weaknesses, that we make mistakes, and that this doesn't make us less worthy of love. On the contrary, it makes us human, real, alive. And that's the beauty of life. Today, I don't need his family's approval, nor his. I need my own. I am my priority, my safe haven. And that's how I want to live, how I want to love and be loved. Free, authentic, and whole. Ultimately, my greatest victory was finding myself again, respecting myself, and loving myself. And I want you reading this to know that you can do it too. That no matter how difficult it is, no matter how impossible it seems, we can get up, heal, and move forward. Because life is ours, and we deserve to be happy just the way we are.